Since the U.S. government eased restrictions on travel to Cuba early last year, the number of American tourists visiting the Caribbean island nation has soared. About 230,000 went to Cuba in the first 11 months of this year, roughly 2.5 times the number in 2014, when the process of normalizing relations began. Today, 8 U.S. airlines are approved to run 20 round-trip flights daily from around the country to Cuba's capital, Havana. However, Cuba's hospitality industry has a lot of catching up to do. With few exceptions, hotels are either abandoned or frozen in time, just like the American cars that roll through the streets of Havana. Nearly 60 years since Fidel Castro's communist revolution forced out privately owned businesses. Along Havana's storied seaside boulevard known as the Malecón, state-owned properties like the Hotel Nacional de Cuba, famous for having hosted American presidents and Hollywood stars, don't have enough capacity. There are currently 63,000 hotel rooms in all of Cuba, and far fewer up-to-date quality hotels that are needed to accommodate what is approaching 4 million international visitors a year. Since 2014, the Cuban government has relaxed rules on foreign ownership of hotels. It's now allowing international chains to build, remodel, and manage hotels, as long as they partner with state-owned Cuban tourism companies. France's Sofitel, Switzerland's Kempinski, and the American-owned Starwood Group are among those refurbishing and constructing 4- and 5-star hotels in Havana. Starwood, recently bought by Marriott, has already taken over management of the Fifth Avenue Hotel, now rebranded as 4 Points, and it's renovating a 19th-century Havana landmark, the Inglaterra. Though the Cuban government has announced plans to double the island's hotel capacity by 2020, the current shortage of rooms is a boon for another American-run company, Airbnb. The online platform for homestay bookings has listings in more than 100 countries, but it says Cuba has become its fastest-growing market, as measured by listings.
We estimate now that 20% of all Americans that are staying in Cuba are staying in a home with a Cuba host.
Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky accompanied President Obama in March on his historic trip to Cuba, the first by a sitting U.S. president in nearly 80 years. Chesky says Americans from all 50 states have used Airbnb in Cuba since it began operating here a year and a half ago. He calls this people-to-people diplomacy.
I think there's hundreds of thousands of new friendships that are possible if we can bring people together.
This is the third time San Francisco entrepreneur Madeline Marco has stayed at the home of Cuban host Fanny Acosta.
It is very different. It really feels like you are in someone's home. A lot of times Airbnb and other places, it can feel very much like you are just renting an apartment. In Cuba, it is a full experience from start to finish.
Acosta and her husband Reddy list 3 bedrooms in their 4-bedroom apartment on Airbnb. In addition to Spanish, she speaks French, Italian, Mandarin, and English.
This is my way to learn about the rest of the world. I don't have to go out. The people in the world, they come to me, and we have very, very, very good friends from all over the world.
The concept of Airbnb is not exactly new here. Even when Fidel Castro was president, Cubans were permitted to list rooms in their homes on the internet and rent them to foreign tourists.
Since 1997, Cubans have been allowed to supplement their income through casa particulares, or private houses. A symbol of an upside-down anchor near the doorway indicates homes that are licensed by the government to rent rooms. 20,000 homes are registered. 10,000 of them are now listed on Airbnb. Like all hosts, Acosta pays taxes on the income earned.
Has business changed since the arrival of Airbnb?
Yes, 100%. Now we try to keep our rooms available just for the Airbnb request. This is our way to know they will arrive for sure. If they decide to change, I know in advance, so I can update the calendar again.
How busy are you?
We are full almost the whole year because they read about us. Before Airbnb, it's not possible.
So you get financial security.
Yes. I'm also learning how to be a businesswoman.
A business that pays well for Cuba. Acosta and her husband pocket about $250 per booking after paying Airbnb's fees. That's more than the $200 average monthly salary in Cuba. The income helped her pay back the loan from a friend she used to buy the apartment 3 years ago. To maximize their earnings, she and her husband share their fourth bedroom with their 2 small children.
So this is quite a sacrifice.
I do it with pleasure. I think everything in the life is a sacrifice.
With income from guests and high demand, buildings like these that have been left derelict for years are now being repaired for their rental income.
Acosta and other Cubans are investing in renovations and remodeling to accommodate guests.
What will you do with this money now that it's yours?
We are going to fix the elevator.
It may be surprising that Airbnb can thrive in Cuba, where the communist regime has banned internet access from home, except for government officials or employees of foreign companies. Cuba is now installing its first residential broadband service, wiring 2,000 homes. And just this week, the government signed a deal with U.S. tech giant Google to place its servers on the island. Universities and offices are equipped with internet access for their employees, but other Cubans must pay to get online at hotels and in Wi-Fi zones in public parks. Without online service at home, Airbnb hosts have come up with workarounds. Fanny Acosta walks a few blocks to the nearest hotel several times a day and pays to get online. University of Havana economics professor Patricia Ramos rents out rooms in her home and tutors friends and family, helping them create profiles of their properties and manage bookings.
The people has not the culture to interact with the web. To access to internet is not easy. In Cuba, it is possible to go to these Wi-Fi zones, but the speed is not so high. And of course, it's also a little bit expensive. So that's why it's not so easy to manage a profile on Airbnb.
Soon, Ramos, Acosta, and others may be learning how to use another American travel site, TripAdvisor. The company is now taking bookings for homestays, hotels, and flights to Cuba after winning approval from the U.S. government last month. Even as multinational chains are building hotels, Acosta believes there will always be a market for the personal service and cultural exchange that homestays provide.
There are some people that feel really good in a casa, and this is what I enjoy. The people who want to stay in the casa and be part of our family.